dear brothers and sisters. Today we are into the second Sunday of Advent, and every Sunday the Church presents one important person as a model for us to look up to and imitate in the preparation to welcome the Lord. And the Church is presenting today Saint John the Baptist for us to look up to and to imitate him. To understand what is Advent, we need to look at a beautiful incident in the life of Swami Vivekananda. He had been invited to attend the World Parliament of Religions, and with great difficulty he traveled to United States and he attended the conference. And when his turn came, he spoke about Hindu religion very eloquently, very convincingly, very powerfully, and very effectively. And the people were amazed, and they had many questions to ask him. And among the many questions, there were two questions which are relevant for us. And the first question was, did you have a God experience? And the second question was, what is the difference between Christianity and Hinduism? To answer these two questions, he began to explain his own life. When he was young, he had a great desire and a great thirst and a longing to have an encounter with God. And so he decided that he would search for God. And he started the search from the southern tip of India, from Kanyakumari, and he thought to himself, as I keep moving towards the north, I would search for God. And during his journey, he had three things in mind: to search for God, to meet God, and to experience God. And the search, to meet and to know God, he spent the time at the banks of the river, at the foot of the gurus, on the top of the mountains, or under a tree, but constantly within him this great desire to meet God, to know God, and to experience God. And according to him, after 20 long years, when he entered into a temple at the foot of the Himalayas, he had a God experience. And as he came out of the temple, to the people who were waiting outside the temple, he said two wonderful things. The first thing he said, he had a God experience. And because of the God experience, he said, religions divide, but spirituality unites all the people. And that's the first one he said. And to the second question, what is the difference between Christianity and Hinduism? He gave perhaps a classical answer. He said, the God of the Christians, he comes in search of them. Then he said about himself, but we Hindus, we go in search of our God. And if we rewrite these two sentences in the Catholic calendar, we are able to say Advent is the time when God comes in search of us, and Lent is the time when we go in search of God. My dear brothers and sisters, because God comes in search of us, it is important for us to prepare ourselves to welcome the Lord. And when we are preparing, the Church today is giving to us Saint John the Baptist as a model for us to look at him and also to prepare the way he had prepared. And when we analyze the life of Saint John the Baptist, he had two levels of preparation. The first preparation was a personal preparation, and the second preparation was after having sufficiently prepared himself to go in the midst of people and to prepare them. The first preparation was that he went off into the desert. And when he had gone into the desert, that is where he spent the time in prayer, in mortification, in living a life which is totally focused on God, a God-centered life. And he did not have much to eat because it was a desert, and whatever things were available, like the locusts, the wild honey, and maybe a few other creatures which he found in the desert, he was able to eat and to survive. And why? He continued to remain in the desert, preparing himself because he wanted to have a single-minded attention and focus on God. And totally and completely he was focused on God. And having been so much focused on God, he became a disciplined person. He became a person who is convinced that he has to now, having totally prepared spiritually, morally, in a convincing way, mentally as well as emotionally, perhaps in a totality of life, having prepared, he decided now is the time to go out and to prepare the people. And so the first and the most important, my dear brothers and sisters, is for us to look at our own life and to see and to evaluate and to find out how we have been preparing ourselves to welcome the Lord. Are we like Saint John the Baptist? Do we have our minds, our thoughts focused, our preoccupations focused on God? Are we thinking about God? God is coming in search of us. And if He is coming in search of us, there must be a great eagerness, a great enthusiasm, a warmth, a readiness to welcome the Lord who is going to come into our life. And the second thing that we find about John the Baptist was he went out to the people, called them, and he began to preach to them. And his preaching was a very simple preaching. We find in today's Gospel, taken from St. Luke, where we find chapter 3, verse 4. He says, "Prepare the way of the Lord." A very simple statement. And that is what he had repeated, which is already found in Prophet Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 3. In Prophet Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 3, we find, "Prepare a highway for the Lord and make his paths straight." And so John the Baptist had a mission to go out to the people, call them, preach to them, and tell them the Lord is going to come soon. It is important for us to be totally and completely prepared to welcome the Lord. And then people asked him, what must we do if we have to prepare to welcome the Lord? And he had only two things to tell them: be baptized. And then he also told them, repent. Repent and be baptized. And so the two things are very important and very relevant for us during the season of Advent. And why? Because when we repent, there is a spiritual transformation, a spiritual renewal, a spiritual newness that we experience. And that spiritual newness we can experience during a penitential rite. We can experience through the sacrament of reconciliation. That spiritual newness we can experience when we go to the church and pray to the Lord, surrendering ourselves to the Lord and telling the Lord, Lord, I am a sinner. Have mercy on me. Forgive me, so that I can be totally and completely spiritually prepared to welcome you. And surely the Lord will shower His graces, blessings upon you, helping each and every one of us so that we can be totally and completely spiritually prepared to welcome the Lord. And that's what he said, repent and be baptized. And baptized is reminding us it is an encounter with God. So when the Lord comes into our life on the day of Christmas, it is an encounter for us to meet the Lord. And that is a time there is great joy, there is great happiness, and that joy and happiness we share with others, we rejoice with others, and that is why the entire community rejoices together during the time of the birth of Christ, Christmas, singing melodious carols as a community. My dear brothers and sisters, Advent is a time of blessings. Advent is a time of renewal. Advent is a time of transformation. Advent is a time when there is an eagerness. Advent is a time when we experience enthusiasm within us. Advent is a time when we are ready to share with others our joy and happiness. Advent is a time when the community comes together in celebration. Let us make this Advent season a memorable one, a time of renewal, a time of transformation, so that we are ready, suitably prepared to welcome the Lord into our lives. Amen.